Woosa, wake up South Africa. You've been sleeping far too long. Wake up South Africa.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. My name is Taruni Radha. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Taruni Radha Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Thank you too much. For a sort. Anyway, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I thought, anyway, it's all right. Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Ki Jai. Shri Ram Nomi Mahotsava Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Iskon Wusa Ki Jai. Okay, Hari Bol, everyone. Well, how wonderful to be with you on this wonderful, wonderful day. It's just wonderful, super wonderful. And we will, for the next, 45 minutes or something like that, we'll talk about Lord Ram, of course. What else? So to begin, a few prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyas Kripa Sindhubhyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Yes, so again, I'm just really happy to be here with you all on this glorious day, the appearance day of Lord Ram. And we're going to discuss a few different aspects of the nature of Lord Ram, you could say, and few of his pastimes. First of all, though, let us read a couple of verses from Srimad Bhagavatam about Lord Ram, just to set the scene in a nice Shastric way. So first of all, we'll read from Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th canto, chapter 10, titled The Pastimes of the Supreme Lord Ramachandra. And first of all, we will read verse 2. Tasyapi Bhagavan Esha Sakshad Brahma Mayo Hari Angshang Shena Chaturdagat Putra Tvam Prartita Surai Rama Lakshmana Bharata Shatrugna Iti Samgyaya. Translation: being prayed for by the demigods, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth himself, directly appeared with his expansion and expansions of the expansion. Their holy names were Ram, Krishna, I'm still there, aren't I? Yeah. Their holy names were Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrugna. These celebrated incarnations thus appeared in 4 forms as the sons of Maharaj Dasarath. That's a nice way to start. And let's read another verse or two. Why not? I'm going to read verses 6 and 7. I'll just read the translations. This is still Bhagavatam, 9th canto, chapter 10, verses 6 and 7, just the translations. O King, the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra were wonderful, like those of a baby elephant. We may not be so familiar with baby elephants. Anyway, yeah, but they're very cute, but they're very powerful also. In the assembly where Mother Sita was to choose her husband, in the midst of the heroes of this world, he broke the bow belonging to Lord Shiva. This bow was so heavy that it was carried by 300 men. But Lord Ramachandra bent and strung it and broke it in the middle, just as a baby elephant breaks a stick of sugar cane. Thus the Lord achieved the hand of Mother Sita, who was equally as endowed with transcendental qualities of form, beauty, behavior, age, and nature. Indeed, she was the goddess of fortune, who constantly rests on the chest of the Lord. While returning from Sita's home, after gaining her at the assembly of competitors, Lord Ramachandra met Parashuram. Although Parashuram was very proud, having rid the earth of the royal order 21 times, he was defeated by the Lord, who appeared to be a Kshatriya of the royal order. So that's just a few verses just by way of introduction. So let us go on now to discuss a little bit briefly what is the nature of Lord Ram, his characteristics, his personality like that. Because of course he is Krishna. He is a form of Krishna. He's not just another person like we're all separate individuals. We're separate from each other. But Lord Ram and Lord Krishna are not separate from each other. They are the same one person, one in two. And whereas actually it's a fact that Lord Krishna is the original and complete Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Ram is not very much, but a little bit sort of secondary form. In fact, he is the second form, really, of Lord Krishna. Yes, so therefore, when we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, as we did a couple of minutes ago, how does it go? It goes, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That's important, isn't it? It's very important. Lord Ram is there in the Maha Mantra with Lord Krishna directly. So, but the thing is, they have slightly different natures. Well, they have somewhat different natures, not just slightly. They're both the Supreme Lord, but Lord Krishna is particularly known for his, what would you say, sort of jolly nature, even mischievous nature, Krishna. he is the complete Supreme Lord. And he is known as, in Sanskrit, he's known as Leela Purushottama, the Supreme Person. Purushottama means Supreme Person, who's particularly known for his Leelas, his wonderful, beautiful pastimes. Whereas Lord Ram is known as Maryada Purushottama. Purushottama, the Supreme Person, but Maryada Purushottama. Maryada means who strictly follows the rules and regulations and standards and moral principles and does all the right things and really doesn't, I mean, hardly at least, he hardly ever does anything which anyone might think is wrong. Very upstanding, noble person, whereas as we said, Lord Krishna is sometimes mischievous and naughty, and he steals the butter. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's glorious. But for ordinary people, Lord Krishna is often a little more difficult to really appreciate compared to Lord Ram. Lord Ram is easier to appreciate because of his moral uprightness, his righteousness, how honorable he is, how extremely honest he is. Like this. So that's just little, I mean, just a little idea. It's a big subject, of course. It's a huge subject. But Lord Ram is very much like that. So let's just get into things a little bit more in the time we have. You know, well, first of all, I assume you do know that some of the different pastimes of Lord Ram. I assume you know some of the Ram Leela. I assume you know a bit. And therefore, I assume you know that Mother Sita was kidnapped. Well, before we get into that, let me just give a little example of his righteousness and his, you know, his dutifulness, just ready to perform his duties, come what may. Because Lord Ram, you know, it's a long story. And I mean, it's really a long story, what happened with Lord Ram. But he was exiled for 14 years. The day before he was to be officially installed as the crown prince, means officially established that he's going to be the next king in a little while when his father retires or maybe passes away. Yeah, so it was next day. And, but his father, Dasarath, one of his wives named Kaikeyi, again, as I said, it's a long story, but Kaikeyi was owed a special favor by her husband Dasarath, the father of Lord Ram, because she saved his life in a battle. She saved his life. And he said, I'll give you anything. Just tell me what you want. It's yours. And she said, no, well, it's okay. You know, later, I'll take you up on that offer. So the day before Lord Ram was going to be installed as the Prince Regent, they call it in England. the crown prince, Kaikeyi, who had been associating with one envious sort of witch-like person who happened to be in the royal sort of amongst the royal staff, her mind became polluted. And that particular person, Mantara, told her, you know, when Lord Ram becomes king, he's going to have your son, Bharat, killed, I'm sure. And somehow Kaikeyi became bewildered and she accepted that. So the day before Lord Ram was to be installed as the Prince Regent, the Crown Prince, she told Dasarath, her husband and Ram's father and Bharat's father too, that, you know, tomorrow, you know, I'm taking you up on the offer you made some years ago when I saved your life. What I want is Bharat, my son, he becomes the crown prince, and Ram is exiled for 14 years. And there was nothing Dasarath could do. He had to accept. So then Kaikeyi went with Dasarath to tell Ram, but Dasarath was just too overwhelmed by just, you know, horror. He couldn't speak. So Kaikeyi told Ram that you're not being installed as the Prince Regent, you're exiled. And my son Bharat is becoming Prince Regent. And she thought, you know, like Dasarath was just completely shocked. She thought that Ram would be completely shocked, but he wasn't, because of his noble, righteous nature. If his father ordered him, that's it. That's just fine. It's wonderful. Whatever it is, he just totally accepted. So Kaikeyi told him that, you know, I bet you're upset, aren't you? But Lord Ram answered, listen to this. There's no need to say such things to me, my lady. On my father's order, on the king's order, I am prepared to jump into fire, commanded by him who is my preceptor, father, king, and well-wisher. I'm ready to drink strong poison or throw myself into the ocean. Tell me, my lady, what the king's request is. I shall do it. I promise. Ram does not speak twice. Yeah. So he's just ready. Whatever his father told him, that's it. That's part of his nature, his righteous, dutiful nature. Not just ready like, oh, well, okay, if you insist, but ready like, yes, I'll do it. I want to do it. It's the best thing. So that's what happened when he was told. And then, you know, Sita, well, let me just backtrack slightly. Yeah, this is important. In the verses we read at the beginning, it said how Lord Ram took part in a contest called Swayamvara, along with many other princes, young royalty. And whoever won the competition would win Sita as their wife. And the competition was that they had the bow of Lord Shiva there. And the verse, that verse said, it was so big and so heavy it could only be carried by 300 men. And this is not just 300 ordinary men from the factory in Johannesburg. This is 300 warriors, 300 kshatriyas, big, powerful men, 300 of them. So, but now before that, and this is establishing the special nature of Mother Sita, because she's not just some lady from, you know, Soweto or somewhere, you know what I mean. She's not just some ordinary woman, young lady. She is the goddess of fortune. She is, in fact, the source of Lakshmi. She is higher than Lakshmi. Lakshmi comes from her. So there's this one pastime, special pastime. It was shortly before, just a few days before that competition, where the young men had to string the bow and then fire an arrow from the bow, like use it as a real bow. And the bow was in the palace on a sort of some sort of stand or something, you could say. So Mother Sita and her girlfriends were in a courtyard just outside the room where the bow was lying on the stand. And they were having a ball game, throwing a ball back and forth and laughing and jumping and that sort of thing. But then someone threw the ball, it got stuck in a tree in the courtyard. And they tried shaking the tree and even climbing the tree a little, but they couldn't get the ball out. So Mother Sita said, I know, let me get that bow. And with the bow, I will hold it up and I will poke the ball out of the tree and we'll get the ball back. So Mother Sita went in there and with one hand, she picked up the bow, one hand, and carried it outside. And with one hand, with the bow, she poked the ball, got it out of the tree, took the bow back inside, put it back on that sort of stand type thing. So in other words, Mother Sita is extremely powerful, extremely powerful. So then a few days later, that competition took place. And Lord Ram was there, and various other princes and royalty and big kshatriyas, very prominent warriors. And you know who was there? Was Ravana. Ravana also wanted to win Sita. So one by one, those princes came over to that sort of stand where the bow was lying and tried to lift it. Because first they had to lift it and hold it up and then string it and then fire an arrow from it. No one could lift it. The last one, the second to last one to try was Ravana. And he managed to lift it off the stand. I mean, like a few inches up. But then he couldn't manage. And he just, he sort of gave way. And the bow was on his fingers, crushing his fingers. And Ravana couldn't lift it off his fingers. And he was in big trouble. And then Lord Ram came over. He was to be the last one. And Lord Ram with one hand, just picked the thing up and said, okay, you can go now. So it was a big embarrassment for Ravana, but it just showed that, Ravana is a human being, actually. He's an extremely powerful human being, but he's not on the level of Lord Ram and devotees. Very important point. In terms of power, just physical strength, he's not on the level of Sitadevi. It's just not on the level at all, because they are divine, transcendental personalities, the Supreme Lord and his consort. So then Lord Ram just picked the bow up, no problem, just strung it and pulled the string back and back and back, and the bow broke. And when the bow broke, the sound it made deafened everyone, because it was the bow of Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva, he is really powerful. So, okay, so then Sita and Ram were married. But then after some time, Lord Ram was exiled for 14 years, banished, as we talked about, on his own, just himself. But then Sita came. Sita came, and, it's a very interesting exchange they have. And I'm just going to read a little of it. But Sita came and said, all right, when are we leaving? When are we leaving? And Lord Ram replied, we are not leaving. I am leaving. You are staying in the palace because I'm exiled to the forest. I'm going to just live under the trees for 14 years. And you're a lady. You're a princess. You cannot be subjected to living like that. So I will go because I have to, but you will stay. And Mother Sita said, no, I'm coming with you. So there's an exchange between the two of them. Lord Rama is saying, no, you can't come. You must not come. It's not right, because you're just too fine a lady. And Sita is saying, I am coming. And that's all. And you will not stop me. So here, let me just read a few of the words she says. Just a few sentences. There's a whole thing. Actually, it's really amazing, actually. But let me just read a little bit. So this is now Mother Sita demanding to go. And not just demanding, but just telling, I am coming. So she says to Lord Ram, if you leave for the impenetrable wilderness today, O Ram, I will walk ahead of you, crushing the sharp thorns and blades of kusha grass with my bare feet. In this way, sparing your feet from any pain. I will walk before you, scouting for danger, and will only eat the remnants of your food. Casting away your envy at my courage and your anger at my disobedience to stay in Ayodhya, take me with you without any hesitation, as one drinks the remaining water left in a cup. And listen to this. This is pretty amazing. There is no sin in me for which I should be left behind. In all circumstances, shelter in the shade of the feet of one's husband is better than residence in a palace, in an aircraft, or travel through outer space. I do not need any instruction at this time regarding how I should act. Why are you despondent? What are you afraid of, that you are prepared to abandon me, who am completely devoted to you? Know that I am as devoted to you as the chaste Savitri was to Satyavan. In my life, I have never even, mentally looked at another man, as do women who disgrace their families. Now, one time we can go through the whole thing. I mean, particularly for ladies and particularly for married ladies, it's super heavy. I mean, heavy, it's super powerful. Her dedication to Lord Ram, total dedication to Lord Ram. So they went. And Lakshman went also. He told Ram, you'll need an assistant. I'm your younger brother. I have to go. I want to come. So he came. And he told Lord Ram, I will protect you. I will stay awake 24 hours a day for the 14 years. I will not sleep, so I can protect you. And his wife, I don't know if you know the name of the wife of Lakshman. Anyway, his wife's name is Urmila. Urmila said, I will sleep for the 14 years. I will sleep for my husband, so that when the 14 years are finished, he will be fine. So she slept for the 14 years, and Lakshman stayed awake for the 14 years, always on guard for any danger. So then off they went into the jungle, the forest. You know, it's sort of in that part of the world, it's kind of mixed jungle forest type of situation. And at one point, I mean, it was right towards the end, actually. It was right towards the end. Sita was kidnapped by Ravana. And don't forget what we told you. What happened with the bow? Mother Sita lifted it with one hand and just poked the ball out of the tree, just like it's some little stick or something. Ravana couldn't carry it. It was going to crush his fingers. So how did Ravana kidnap Mother Sita? This is a very good question. And actually, you know, we don't have time now, but actually there's an explanation, a detailed explanation in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yeah, anyway, that's another subject for another time. But what happened was, yeah, again, it's another one of these long stories, but one, Maricha, who was a wizard, like a Muti man sort of thing, but he was the real thing. He was the real thing. He transformed himself into a beautiful little deer on the order of Ravana. And then he attracted Sita. Sita told Ram, you must catch the deer for me. And Lakshman told Ram, don't do it. This is not an ordinary deer. Just leave it. But Sita was insisting, and Ram went to catch the deer. Actually, Ravana, Maricha, the wizard, told Ravan, well, Ravan said, I want you to take the form of a deer and go and attract, and do like what we just explained, attract Ram to leave Sita, and I'm going to kidnap Sita. And Maricha said, well, I'd rather not do that, thanks. Thanks for the offer, but no thanks. And Ravan said, listen, if you're not going to do it, I'll just kill you. And Maricha said, but if I do it, Ram will kill me. And Ravan said, all right, just decide, who do you want to be killed by? And Maricha said, yeah, okay, better to be killed by Ram. And so he did it. So again, like I say, it's a long story. But Lord Ram went off to catch the deer and Lakshman stayed to guard Sita. But then, anyway, Lakshman had to go because Maricha, just before Ram killed him, Maricha, imitating Ram's voice, called out, Lakshman, help, come and help me, from somewhere a few hundred meters away in the forest. So Lakshman went, and Ravan came and kidnapped Sita. So of course the question is, how could he do that? And the answer to the question is that Lakshman, before he went, he put an Agni circle around Sita, a circle empowered by the fire god Agni, and said, don't walk through it. And no one can walk through it to touch you. Stay within it. So, but then Ravan came and convinced Sita to help him. He came disguised as an old man and convinced Sita to come out and help him. But when Sita stepped through the Agni mantra, the real Sita went to Agni Loka, and a Maya Sita was kidnapped by Ravana. Anyway, yeah, that's what happened. So then, Lord Rama, of course, he was in shock, total shock that Sita had been kidnapped. And he expressed, there's a lamentation, Ram's lamentation. I want to read you just a tiny little bit. I mean, we just read a little bit. Sita, her affection, her attachment to Ram. This is now a little bit about Ram's attachment, affection for Sita. Because in Ramayana, there's a number of chapters, and it's just Lord Ram lamenting in separation from Sita. But here, this is now Lord Ram speaking. If the demigods in charge of this world do not return Sita to me, in a short time, they will see my prowess, O Lakshman. I will destroy the universe because of the continuous network of arrows released from my bowstring. No creatures will be able to fly through the sky. See how my steel arrows destroy the world, creating confusion and breaking the bonds of propriety, with all beasts and birds devastated or fled away, shooting with full force arrows that cannot be counteracted by any living beings. I shall rid the world of goblins and rakshasas on account of Sita. When my anger flares up against the three worlds, there will no longer be any demigods, demons, goblins, or rakshasas. Torn to pieces by the flood of my arrows, the worlds of the demigods, demons, and yakshas, as well as of the rakshasas, will cease to exist. If the controlling demigods do not return Sita to me, I shall this very day with my arrows dissolve all the boundaries of these worlds. If they do not return my beloved to me in her original condition, I shall destroy all the three worlds of moving and non-moving beings. So we can just appreciate a little bit the relationship between Sita and Ram. After all, they are Radha and Krishna, but in a different situation, as royalty, and somewhat diminished situation. But their relationship is very, very deep, extremely deep. So then actually, you know, well, Taruni Radha, Devi Dasi, tell me, when must I finish?
So Maharaj, the time to finish would be 10:15, and then from then on we'd take questions.
Okay. Well,
but Maharaj,
you know,
can continue.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a long story. I could just go on for hours, but anyway, let me just say that Lord Ram then met Hanuman, just like the same day. And Hanuman got all his monkeys together. They found out where Sita was on Lanka. And Lord Ram and the monkeys and the bears, they went over and fought with Ravana. And Lord Ram killed Ravana, rescued Sita. And I mean, it's really a long story, actually. But as they say, they all lived happily ever after. And that is definitely true. Anyway, those were a few insights, just a few insights. So yeah, Taruni Radha Devi Dasi, you take over. Let's see if there are any questions or comments or whatever.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. That was just truly so captivating, and the time flew by. I do wish we could have gone longer. And we just want to thank you so much for giving us that captivating narration full of so many lessons we could pocket, take home, and let us carry through for the rest of the day. So if anyone would like to please unmute themselves and pose any questions, now would be the time to do so.
Savya Sachi Prabhu has raised his hand.
All right, Savya Sachi Prabhu.
Savya Sachi Prabhu, Asambeni. Go for it.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have a question in relation to Lord Ram's determination to execute the order of his father. we as disciples, we have the order of the spiritual master, but it's very hard to follow because we're always considering the consequences. Whereas Ram, he didn't consider any consequences at all. He was just ready to follow. So how would one have such determination or faith to just do it?
Yeah, sure. That's an important question. You know, there are many lessons. There are many lessons. Lord Rama is exemplary in so many ways, actually. Krishna, you know, is also exemplary in certain ways, but in certain ways he's not. But anyway, yeah. So, you know, the thing is, in order to come to that stage of surrender, because we're talking about surrender, actually, that I'm in your hands, just, you know, order me, and that's it. That's it. No questions, no, well, hang on a minute, or can we discuss this, or anything like this. Just you ordered me, that's it. That's it. End of story. So, you know, it takes spiritual advancement. That's what it takes. Yeah. And it takes time and purification through chanting, really chanting nicely and very attentively, and also through trying. You know, on one hand, we do those things like chanting, preaching, and we do those things which cleanse the heart. And on the other hand, we have to try to come to the higher standard. But, you know, the thing is, as you mentioned, we have the tendency due to our conditioned natures to be very conditional and not just ready to just surrender and say, right, that's it, I'm doing it. So that the purification has to be there. Otherwise, we may try to do it artificially, but we won't be able to do it for long. We may be able to do it sometime. We probably can do it sometimes, but not for long. Like, I'll give you an example, like sleeping. Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was the same. They only slept like 3 to 4 hours a night, and sometimes less. And we can do that sometimes. I remember back in the old days, before I became an old man materially, when it was Janmashtami, I didn't go to sleep. I just stayed up and went through the whole Prabhupada Vyasa Puja program. And then in the afternoon, on the Vyasa Puja day, then I took rest, or in the evening. So, you know, to do that sort of thing without real purification, for people like us, we can only do these things temporarily. If there's some special situation, we can sort of go for it and do it. But otherwise, if we try artificially, I mean, you know, particularly to do it in the long term, we won't be able to do it. I remember this one boy when I was a young brahmachari in the temple in London. There was this one boy who was trying to do it. And so he was only sleeping 2 hours, 3 hours a night. The problem was, whenever he sat down, any time, even, would you believe, prasadam time, soon as he sat down, he was asleep, gone. And we would go out, if you, I think you probably know London to some degree. So we would go out on the tube, on the Underground Railway. We'd go out every day and distribute books in different parts of London. And this boy, he would go out and he'd sit down on the train and fall asleep. And he would be woken up by the conductor when the train reached the end of the line. And they came and told everyone, get off the train. And then he'd get on the next train going back, and he'd fall asleep again, and they'd wake him up at the end of the line, at the other end. I mean, this is true. This is true. We had some extremists in those days. We had one boy, if you ask him any question, just any question, the answer was, chant Hare Krishna. What's the time? Chant Hare Krishna. Is there any prasadam? Chant Hare Krishna. What's the program today? Chant Hare Krishna. I'm not kidding you. We had some real extremists. Anyway, so, it's a very important question. And on one hand, we have to continue seriously following the process, particularly chanting and doing our service, studying the books. We just got to do it. But at the same time, we have to try to do what we're told, particularly the order of the spiritual master. We really have to try. And, if we try, then we'll get the experience that the order of the spiritual master contains within it whatever Shakti, whatever potency, whatever intelligence is needed to carry out the order. And gradually, as we experience that more and more, then we'll be more and more willing and ready to surrender more until, you come to that point. So anyway, thank you for the good question, and thank you, devotees, for listening very patiently. And I have to actually, I'm sorry, I have to leave right at this actual minute, because I have to give class in Phoenix, New Jagannath Puri at 11 o'clock. Please forgive me, but I'll see you later. Taruni Radha, thank you for being a very nice MC. And Savyasachi for giving me the opportunity. Savyasachi Maharaj. And see you later. Okay.
That is the end of this morning's program. Hare Krishna.